So one of the things that I think lots and lots of guitar players are mystified by is vibrato. Okay? And there's no real hard and fast rule other than you're just going to have to keep hacking away at it. It takes forever to get it right. So for me, the benchmark guys, I loved Hendrix's vibrato. I really took off on, I tried to steal a lot of Angus Young's vibrato, but I can't really get it. And I love obviously B.B. King and Clapton. These are two different styles though. B.B. King has the hummingbird thing that you see, everybody, that's become like kind of the de facto. And then the Clapton is in particular, it's a particularly important one to master because it's the most effective on the high E. That's really the emphasis of this lesson here. As high E string vibrato is got to be one of the more challenging things to create. Now, my cousin was somehow gifted with this very early in life, and I was always mystified by it. He and I would spend hours together playing, and whenever he would play lines up in the top register, it always sang and had this beautiful weeping quality to it, and I tried hard to get it, and the best I could do was this kind of thing, kind of where you're pivoting back and forth. When I was on the high E string, I had to come like this, but I started noticing that he was doing, I don't think he even had the access to video of Clapton. I mean, I know he'd seen him a couple times, but I don't think he ever had really gotten to geek it where he realized that you had to lift the thumb off the back of the neck and kind of come up and down. And he just had this thing where it just was this thing. And I, for the life of me, and in particular with just the one finger, I was just like, and it was always just making this awful racket of the thing. And man, my vanity and ego wouldn't let me bust it out. So it took some time though, over the course of the last year or two, to really kind of, I figured, I'm almost 50, I might as well figure out how this thing is really done. And, every other part of my vibrato I was pretty confident about. But this one, I gotta say, it was very elusive for a long time. So here it is, in case you don't know, there's not that much out there in terms of how to do this, but the thumb has to come off the back of the neck. The right hand really has to concentrate on keeping everything you're not playing quiet. Otherwise, you can end up with this kind of a situation where you're going, and there's a lot of errant just going on behind you. Okay, but let's make it easy on us. Okay, and let's start somewhere in the middle of the string. Farther down, it can get harder. It's harder to get that singing because there's just less string, there's more tension back here. But here you've got about equidistant here. So the idea is you're muting with this side here. And the thumb, like I said, it's off the back of the neck. You can't really, this isn't gonna cut it. And it's really, it's helpful to lock your wrist and kind of pump, kind of like, I don't know how else to say it other than you're, now that's on the B. All right, the tendency for me would be to that, but this is different. Especially if we're playing here, right? Because there's sometimes where you can't shift positions to get to the note where you can put a little stank on it. Okay, so what you're looking for is that similar relaxed kind of travel from the home note and then back to it, roughly the same distance every time, in similar rhythm, and not monkeying with the return pitch. So when you come up, make sure you're coming up from the actual note you're trying to, and not going and not making it all the way back to the first note, okay guys? So, all right, and having some sustain on the amp helps just because you can actually hear what's happening, but once the technique is under your fingers, you're going to be able to use it with a clean tone too. You don't have to always be in this kind of high gain sound that I've got cooking here. But for sustain purposes, I have it up. Okay, and try to do it slowly. See if you can get that happening. I practiced that for a long time to even get it as mediocre as this. There are other cats that are just, they've been hearing that sound because they grew up loving Cream and listening to Cream. I was never really a Cream guy. I like certain elements of Clapton, but I couldn't get into certain elements of Cream. So I never heard a lot of it. And then all my guitar heroes, they loved Cream and Clapton, and I was always kind of like dismissive, but then I started to realize they knew what they were talking about, especially with respect to Clapton's vibrato, and that element is really quite elusive. And I think it's something that a lot of dedicated guitar players tend to shy away from because it is such a basic thing that you think you've got you got it under control, so you're not going to go back to it. But really you should. You should take some time and get up in there. Make that thing sting, you know. Alright, there's going to be some extra, like in particular, when you let go, the other strings sometimes make some noise. But if you're doing it with any conviction, it kind of sounds cool. Like there's that solo, I think it's Larry Carlton, where his vibrato is shaking and you're hearing the other strings, and it's awesome. So get into it, okay? That's nice. That's on the B string, but that's a different animal altogether. It's got a little, okay, and especially as you get it further up. Right, you can see my thumb there. Okay, sorry. Old style Strats have this big lump here. I think I might get a new one with a smoother transition, but it's the only way to do it. Otherwise, you can't shake down. Otherwise, you get no bueno. Okay, so you got it. And then as you can, bring it further and further back until you get further and further down, and hopefully you can keep the quality up. That's tough. Let's see, the thumb, that's not really the same thing. That's not cutting it. So, you know, I still have ways to go with this, but I'm telling you, if you're interested in true mastery of this thing, this is definitely a chapter that you gotta read a couple of times. Okay, so high E, Clapton style vibrato, thumb off the back of the neck, relax, and you kind of, I don't know, kind of like you're gesticulating. You're trying to convince somebody, hey. So, but there. And then shift to the index, from the index to the middle. Maybe give it a little extra help behind. I'm a little sharp there, I think. Pinky. I don't really do that often, but I guess you should. Not to neglect mentioning the classical kind of side to side. Place where I started out when I was trying to ape my cousin's vibe. It's nice, but it doesn't have the same singing quality. Now, there's some guys like Steve Kimmock and you know that and Frizzell. That I mean, Frizzell's doing a lot of neck bending, right? But I think I hear Kimmock doing kind of these ideas where he'll take the note And depending on where he is within the fret and where he's allocating the pressure, it actually seems to make the note waver in a way that actually comes from beneath. And it's a very fascinating style of vibrato that comes from the side to side thing. And that's a whole nother kettle of fish, to use a phrase that makes no sense at all. But you can hear it coming from below. That's different than this, which is clearly going from the target note sharp. So this is, I'm making both sounds happening by too much pressure, I guess. There it is, okay? So by pulling forward, it seems to loosen up the tension, and but this is different. And this, talk to John Mayer and Clapton. Those guys, they've got it really pretty great. I mean, obviously Clapton is. All right, so we can talk about other types of vibrato in other lessons, but that's a big one. Okay. Hope you have a great day. Take care.